All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And it is officially afternoon. I am Andy Thomas, Chief Marketing Officer at Kforce, and I could not be more excited to be facilitating our latest installment of our Knowledge Force webinars. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with Kforce as of yet, we are a solutions firm that provides our clients managed outcomes, project teams, and talent solutions. And this very successful effort is underscored by a knowledge force of more than 30,000 experts that are deployed each year. We're just so excited for today's topic. And the name of that topic is Women in Leadership, Pathways to Prosper in Today's Workplace. As we all know, women are shaping our world into what it is today, yet they do so in the face of just some incredibly unique challenges when pursuing their career goals. So, to help navigate these obstacles, we are remarkably fortunate to have two incredibly accomplished leaders who will be sharing their wisdom with us today. We are so lucky to have Joey Rosenberg from Women Who Code and our very own Michelle Baer here with us today. Now, they're going to be providing expert advice on how women can pursue leadership opportunities at work, create a culture of support for other women in the workforce, and of course, trying to find that greater work-life balance. So we're going to get into our introductions. We'll start with Joey. Now, Joey serves as the Chief Leadership Officer at Women Who Code, the world's most largest and most active group dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. Joey is not only the leader, but she's also the visionary behind Women Who Code and has truly driven innovation. Some notable examples of this would be including a borderless digital community, a new model for developing technical leaders, and the Women Who Code Fellowship Program. Joey's professional background ranges from startup to Fortune 50 companies and includes roles in executive leadership, marketing, finance, and diversity and inclusion. Joey also has passions that have led her to serve on the World Association of Girl Guides and is highly active in Girl Scouts and has supported grassroots community empowerment projects around the globe. Joey, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And if you'll notice in your introduction, I purposely ended around you having an impact around the globe. And one of the things we love to do with our webinars is learn a little bit more about our guests outside of the professional realm. And I do know from our conversations that travel is something that is a great passion of yours, to the point where you've done it quite often and to some real incredible places. And I was hoping you could share a little bit about that with our attendees today.
Sure. So travel is definitely a big part of my life. Normally, of course, in the last year, it's been on hold. But I love traveling. I've been to probably 4 or 5 continents in about 20 countries. And the first time I ever got on an airplane, I was in my early 20s. I'd never really explored the world, but I got on an airplane. I went to India for a month. And that just broke open my whole perspective on how big the world really is and also how small it is. And so I've been exploring it ever since. And I bring that, everything I learned from exploring different cultures and getting different perspectives into the work I do.
What are your favorite places to visit?
Oh, the favorites are always so hard. So I studied in Paris and love living in that city. I've done some grassroots work in Kenya, and I think it's just an incredible place with incredible people. And India, I think, was my first love. So I've been back and spent some more time in India, and I always feel fondly about that.
Absolutely.
But I think it's hard. It's impossible to find a place that you can't find something wondrous about.
Exactly. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to come back to you in a little bit with a lot of different questions. And once again, thank you for being here to share your wisdom. We also have, as mentioned, another expert here with us today, Michelle Baer. Michelle is our Region Senior Vice President of our incredibly successful South Florida market at Kforce and has been with the firm for over 9 years. Now, Michelle started as an account manager and quickly advanced through various roles throughout her tenure. Currently, Michelle oversees an incredible team of over 65 associates In addition, now we have a little head start on knowing a little bit about Michelle from working with her for a long time. Michelle has two daughters, Chloe and Zoe. What I didn't know was that Spanish is Michelle's first language. And what a lot of people I don't think know, that before her prolific professional career, you were also a very successful athlete while in school. So Michelle, a little bit more about that one. That one's very interesting to me.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for having me. I'm humbled to be sharing this panel with Joey. I think being an athlete, a swimmer, first for the national team in Puerto Rico, and then for the University of Miami really has shaped a lot of, the way I pursue my professional and personal career. I actually started as a synchronized swimmer, and around 13 years, when I was 13 years old, had to choose. It was either synchronized swimming or swimming, and I went for swimming. And it's a sport, that to this day I enjoy. I spend a lot of time on the water, and, it was very rewarding through my college years.
And you went to the University of Miami as well. So all the way up to Division I, very exciting around that. And so when did you move from Puerto Rico to Miami area?
So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I actually moved to Mexico to complete my high school years there. My dad was relocated, so we spent 3 years in Mexico City. And then I moved to Miami, where I started University of Miami in the early 2000s. So it's been about 18 years now. Time flies. Incredible.
It does fly. All right. With that said, we're going to start to get in our Q&A, but I have to do some housekeeping prior to that. I want to draw everybody's attention to the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen, where you can type in and submit questions throughout our discussion. I promise everyone we will do the best we can to get to all of your questions. That said, we will also be sending out a recording after this. So please be on the lookout for that, as well as a feedback survey. So that being said, why don't we dive into our questions? Now, the way we have this organized is we have some general topics that you see on the screen, and I'll be asking some specific questions of Joey and Michelle surrounding that. And then when we get through some of those, we will go over to the questions coming in through the panel. So as you can see, our first category about talking a little bit about your career journeys. Now, Joey, I'll start with you. You didn't have a formal degree in tech, but you found yourself in the tech realm. Could you please share with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So my educational background is international affairs. I studied global business and economics and policy, but my first love was math. So my first declared major was physics. I always took what people deemed as the hard math classes, which I find to be the exciting math classes. And then once I found myself in the workforce, the thing that really stuck for me was global. I really wanted to have a global impact. I wanted to work on the global level. And so that's the piece I followed. But I always found myself in these tech adjacent spaces. I was working in accounting when Check 21 legislation passed, which allowed businesses to do more transactions electronically and change the entire accounting system and the way that businesses process finances. And so I was in that space when the digital transformation happened for accounting and business. I found myself then shifting over to be client focused. And at the time I was working in the legal industry, and our firm was working on a proprietary software build. And because of my role, I ended up consulting on that proprietary software build. And I really started to see how automation and having infrastructure for people to plug into could level up their whole team. And so I started kind of playing around in Excel and hard coding all these really complicated spreadsheets so that people could do their jobs in a more easy way. And then fast forward, I ended up managing a global portfolio for a Fortune 50 company and from a product marketing side. And what I found is to do marketing really well, you have to measure everything. And measuring everything means that you have a lot of data. One of the first things I was introduced to was the data warehouse. It was Oracle based. You had to use SQL to pull data out of it. And one of the first things that people told me was, this is really complicated. You probably won't be able to figure it out. Don't worry, somebody will figure it out and run a report for you. Well, of course, I saw that as a challenge. And so I started learning SQL, and I found, honestly, it was a lot like what I had been doing on this proprietary software build, and even in Excel. There are all these commonalities. And so I found myself doing a lot of data analysis and a little bit of data science before we had words like that. And I ended up being the person that everyone came to run reports, and how in the world do you get the data warehouse to talk to you about what you need for marketing. And so I kept going in this path and finding myself in these tech adjacent spaces. And before I knew it, I was spending more time doing technical things and digital transformation than anything else. And I found a real passion for it. I love being able to use technology to accomplish things in an easier way and pull the information out that you need it. And what I've learned landing in the tech industry is actually, if you're in those tech adjacent spaces, you probably have a lot of skills that will transfer right over to the industry. You might not have the words for it, for what you're doing or what you're learning, but I found that a lot of things apply right across. And so then I found myself at Women Who Code and spending every day with software engineers. And today I'm leading our engineering team from the product side. So I'm not the person coding, but I'm the person that's connecting the dots between business, program, and engineering, which is just one part of my job, but it's a piece that I really love doing.
Well, it's amazing how the experience leads to other doors opening. If you had told your younger self 10 years ago that this is where you would have ended up, would you have been able to predict that back then?
No way. I mean, so I grew up in a rural part of Georgia, which having traveled the world, you might not guess, but I grew up in a pretty rural town, and the only career I ever saw using science or math were doctors and teachers. So I didn't even imagine what an engineer was or could be. My father was an engineer. He drove railroad trains. And so I didn't know anything about that. I could have never predicted this. But now, knowing what I know now, I would have definitely dove in to physics or dove into software development and engineering, because I think it just unlocks so much potential in everything that you're doing.
Wonderful. All right, so now, Michelle, we've gotten to watch your path evolve here at Kforce, but could you share that with the group? As I mentioned, you've ascended quickly. You've had all these different roles, some within the firm and then without. So just fill everybody in a little bit on your path.
Yeah, so I actually studied psychology and business law at the University of Miami. So my goal was always to go to law school, pursue a career as a family attorney. And deep down, I knew I wanted to be working with people. I always knew I wanted, front and center, have daily interactions with people, help them, whether it was find a new job or, find their new home. So I actually started at Kforce doing sales for our finance and accounting division. And I became very interested, similar to Joey, surprisingly, on the data, just how much data was available from accounting, finance, and all the information that was out there. And I started to learn how it was being utilized. And a lot of the ways it was being utilized was through the IT teams and, what they were being able to do with the data, how the data was coming into the companies. So I quickly became interested in data projects in the IT space and started learning more about some of those initiatives, data warehouse, customer predictive analytics, customer focused initiatives to understand customer behavior. So that is really what led me into IT, and just continuing to learn more about what clients were doing, different initiatives they were rolling out, how they were executing, challenges they were running into projects. Between, I call it my two Kforce tours, I was with Kforce for about 2 years at the beginning, and then I left to work with my mom in sales and real estate sales, still very people-focused business. They say there's 3 big moves that people will do in their lives. It's a career move, a home purchase, and starting a family. So I've been involved in 2 of those throughout my career. So really just bringing that customer focus from real estate to my passion of just understanding how companies apply technology and what is possible. It's just amazing. And I think we've seen that in the last year more than ever, but certainly the possibilities are endless, and I became very interested in what was happening in the IT space.
Excellent. All right, so Olivia, why don't we go on to our next topic? And, with that said, as we're all learning so much about diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we do so, a greater appreciation around the importance of sponsorship, advocacy, and mentoring. And so everybody can see the questions up there. I might go a little deeper than that, but just I'd ask out to both of you to chime in on what mentorships or sponsorships have really helped you progress through your career. And then after that, we can speak to how have you then paid it forward, so to speak, to others.
So I'll be happy to start there, Andy, if you
Thank
want me to.
Yes.
I am a firm believer, similar to raising kids, it takes a village to growing a career. It is no different. It really does take a lot of guidance, a lot of good advice. Some, is not always the best and necessarily what we want to hear, but it is needed. I always envision myself, to have one mentor. And I think over the past few years, I've realized it is not one mentor. There are so many aspects of life that need different mentors, and that you need some guidance to understand what is beyond what is in front of you right now. So my mentors have come from different walks of life, very different backgrounds, professions, and many different perspectives. First mentors, certainly my parents, both accomplished business professionals. My dad was a CFO for a pharmaceutical company as I was growing up, and my mom, being an attorney, turned amazing relationship builder throughout the years. And there's four mentors really that stick out for me. Like I mentioned, my parents. I've had two wonderful mentors at Kforce, Josh Borden and John McGalley, that have stuck by me through many mistakes, and I'm sure they questioned my sanity many times, but they stuck through it. They guided me through it. They helped me see, what is beyond what's in front of me. They allowed me to make those mistakes. They gave me some tough and some great advice. I would lean on them a lot for any questions, concerns that I had. And, I think it's important to realize again, to the point that you can't see what's in front of you sometimes, past what's in front of you. You need someone to help you see that. And one thing that I always believed is, don't ask for advice if you are not going to listen to it. It's not always easy to hear the advice. But if someone is taking the time from their day to give you advice, to hear your concern, to hear your problem, just at least have the respect, for lack of a better word, and gratitude to return to them and let them know, hey, I took your advice. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do. And this was the result, right? Just circling back with them and showing that appreciation, for what you've learned from them.
Much appreciated. It's interesting. There's something that just lays through, and you started to go there earlier, is these mentors or sponsors have seen things that you might not have been able to see yourself. And you tie that into where you went earlier regarding, not knowing where the next step would be. And we've all read now that it's not a career ladder, it's a jungle gym. You could end up just about anywhere, which is going to mean you're going to need those sponsors as you move forward to introduce you to those different types of opportunities that we may not even see ourselves capable of, just because it wasn't in that direct path we were looking at. So that's Joey, we'd love to hear from you around, any significant mentors or sponsors in your life, or how you've been able to then apply that to others that where you want to help them along.
Yeah, so I think for me, having a mentor and finding the right mentor is really recognizing that lived experience is valuable. I think you can read all of the things in the world about how to do something, but until you've done them, until you've had that experience, you don't really know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so a mentor can bring that lived experience forward. And you had mentioned diversity and inclusion, when we first started talking about mentors, when I think about navigating the workplace, and I look back at my career, finding people who I could connect with on topics like how to solve a problem that was ahead of me, how to think through something was really important. And also connecting with people who had similar lived experiences to me around how to navigate the workplace. So for myself, as a woman, as a queer woman, as a biracial person, as a mother, there are all these different topics that go beyond how do I read this quarterly report. And figuring out how to navigate the workplace and navigate personal challenges as well as the professional ones ahead of you, I think are really important. And so when I look back, I think about the mentors that stand out. And when I, in my younger years, it was the people that were what do you think about this? I think you should try this out. And Michelle, I think that's some of the stuff you were talking about, right? Like, I see that you could do this. This is an opportunity for you. Why don't you try this? And then in even more recent, even yesterday in my career, I would say the mentors that I value are people who are facing similar challenges and that I am today. And maybe they don't know all the answers, but they're going through it and we can connect on what feels similar. A sponsor for me is somebody that's been there, that has already overcome that hurdle, and they can help lift you up and make those connections. And you can actually be that for someone kind of once you've gotten to where you want to be, or even if you aren't sure if you're where you want to be. I find in this past year, I took a really active approach in mentoring others. And I found that I was surprised at how much I learned about myself by paying it forward. In working with other people, I was surprised at all of this knowledge I had that was kind of hidden, that maybe I haven't tapped into, or maybe I hadn't realized that other people didn't just inherently have this knowledge. And so by being able to mentor others, it not only gives them the benefit of that mentorship, but it actually ended up being a reverse mentoring for me too. And so I highly recommend a full circle mentoring approach. Find people that can share their lived experiences with you, that can lift you up, and pay it forward, because it is really a full circle experience, and it'll have a significant impact in the way that you approach things every day.
So significant. Thank you both for sharing. Olivia, if we could go to the next one, and this is really about moving careers forward, and that can come in all different types of platforms, but one are very specific initiatives designed to do so. And I know both of you have been involved in a couple of those. Michelle, could you tell us a little bit about the moms group that you just organized all on your own?
Yeah, so thanks for the credit. It wasn't all on my own, but it certainly has turned out to be a wonderful space, for women to express, some of the things that they are running into working from home. Kids are at home, babies are at home. It actually started, Kai Mitchell, our COO, who has done a wonderful job at providing just a safe place for women in our industry and our firm to discuss some of the challenges, some of the things we've learned, some of the things we don't want to go back to, some of the things we're thankful for right now, and she really initiated that and opened that door. And I remember in one call with John McGalley, one of my weekly calls with him, one of my many weekly calls with him, he'll say, I said, I am touching base with a lot of moms that are actually coming back from maternity leave into our team. And I'm hearing a lot of the same challenges. Before, moms would either leave their babies at home with a caretaker or drop off the babies at, somewhere while they went to work. Well, now the 3-month baby is at home with them, and it is very hard. That separation, I think, has become even harder and more challenging for a lot of the moms. Whether they're looking at the video all day or they can hear the baby crying in the room next door, and feeling that, they have to be present 100% at work, and not being able to go and reach out to the baby or check in on the baby. So, and I know that's one of many different scenarios, right? I think regardless of the age, moms learn how to navigate having kids at home over the last year. So I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't sure how to help them. So John McGalley actually goes, start a mom group. I am sure out there they can lean on each other. Someone will have a solution to someone else's problem. Someone has lived it, and can offer some advice. And that proved to be very true after our first moms group. It was amazing. I mean, even from sharing from caretakers, places to leave the baby during the day, so they were in a good, safe place while the moms were working from home. It just caught on and it keeps growing, and I love it. And I love hearing these moms that are very passionate moms and very passionate professionals. And I just couldn't stop thinking about the challenges that they were running into.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very inspiring, and having a great impact as well. So with that said, Joey, really want to hear about the Above the Glass blog, if you could share, please.
Sure. And before I do it, I want to say thank you to Michelle. Thank you so much for starting that group in your workplace. I would love to get your template and figure out how to do that for us too, because I know as a parent this year has been just a wild time and hard to explain. And you definitely need so many more resources than I could have ever predicted. So thank you for doing that work. So at Women Who Code, we are all about ensuring that women are inspired and able to rise in their careers. And we do a lot of different workplace initiatives. A lot of them focus on leadership, and particularly getting, for engineers, one of the big drop-offs is going from individual contributor to manager. You see a lot of women kind of dropped out of that. It's already a small pool at the individual contributor level. It gets even smaller when you rise to that just one step up the rung. And for women of color, it's even more significant. You see a 28% reduction from individual contributor to manager in the pool that's already there, that's already small. And so creating resources to help women level up are really important. And Above the Glass is something that one of my colleagues created. It's all about creating a space for people who have made it above the glass to be able to talk about their stories so that people can see themselves represented in leadership. And representation is so critically important, especially for keeping women in tech. We know that about half of women will leave tech by mid-career, about the 10-year mark, and that's right at the moment that they're primed to advance. And so having series like Above the Glass, being able to see yourself up there helps people to envision a pathway for them. And I think it's a really cool series. It's a great way to learn from people at scale about their experience in leadership, in the C-suite, in the kind of director, VP, and above space. And some of those stories are really great. Well, all of them are really great, but it's a really fun way to get to hear people's stories. And again, going back to mentorship, it gives them a platform to mentor at scale, which is also a great benefit for people who have really limited time, and a lot of people wanting all of that. So that's why Above the Glass was created, to create that opportunity for people to see themselves in positions of leadership and find out what it's all about.
So let me return the thanks that you offered Michelle earlier, because I love how this works as Kforce is now learning from what you've done and you've created there. So that's a wonderful dynamic. Thank you for walking through that. All right, Liv, if we can go to the next one. And this is really about inspiration and motivation, and it's pretty straightforward. Joey, we'll go right back to you. Is how do you motivate your team despite the obvious ongoing challenges, as there have been so many over the past year?
Yeah, this year's been tough, as everybody knows, but this is not a secret, right? This has been a hard year for everyone. There's been so many things having to be balanced. And so I think some of the critical things that we've done in terms of keeping our team motivated, number one is just being authentic, being able to say, hey, it's hard right now. We've slowed the work down a little bit. We've gotten really laser focused, which is sometimes hard because people on our team are really creative and innovative, and they come up with all these great ideas. But we've said, no, we have to stay super tightly focused to core, because we are committed to not overwhelming our team in a way that just becomes impossible. So we want to set people up for success. We want to acknowledge that it's hard right now. We've kind of adopted a phrase of let's give ourselves some grace, meaning we'll set the normal ambitious deadline that we always would, but there's a high chance that something's going to happen and that might need to be shifted. And that just means that we need to have a conversation. So we keep this dialogue open. We keep reminding each other to stay focused, give each other grace, and then just be authentic. As a team leader, if I can't show up with my hair frazzled and my child crying and needing me and still trying to figure out how to get through our current brand refresh that we're working on, if you can't show up that way authentically, then your teammates can't. And so I hope that I've been modeling that this past year, and I've definitely been keeping that conversation right up front. And also stop doing what's not necessary. We've learned a whole bunch about things we were doing that, you know what, actually this is adding marginal value. Let's just pause it for now. Maybe we'll find out a year from now that we need to bring it back. Maybe we won't, but be okay with staying focused and staying human.
I love where you went on grace, which involves some empathy of what people are going through as we're learning about the different challenges as we move forward in this uncharted territory that we're in. So very helpful. Michelle, what about yourself and motivation and inspiration for your team?
I actually chuckled when Joey said, things don't exactly go as planned, because I think that has been the theme for the last year. And my motto has been just meet people where they are at. And that phrase, I kept hearing it, but it really did take a completely different meaning for me in the last year. I think we saw a period of time where everyone was uprooted from their day-to-day routine. Everyone at the same time, it just changed. It was so strange. I don't think there's ever been a moment where everyone, went through the same thing at the same time, but still it was so interesting to see and experience how everyone went through it differently. Some people adjusted a lot quicker. Some people were, struggled balancing home and profession. Some of them thrived in this, period of time. Life got messy for a very long time. And I think every time we thought it was getting better, it took a turn and it got even messier. So my motto became really meeting people where they're at, having those one-on-one conversations to understand, where each person on the team was. We can all sit in front of a screen and smile, but really taking time to understand what was going on in their personal lives. There were no longer the water cooler chats, the walks down the hallway to the bathroom side by side, a lot of those check-in, as small as they seemed at one point when we were doing them, they're huge. I mean, you get to learn so much about someone and what they're going through. So really just meeting people where they're at and being authentic and telling them it's okay. It'll get better, to those moms coming back to the workplace. You'll be okay. We'll all figure this out together.
Well, it was interesting. It becomes less about the platform itself and the amount of interest we're showing in what people are going through. And it's been really inspiring to watch how that's happened throughout the firm, of just staying close to it, because everybody is experiencing something unique to themselves. Okay, so as we move on to the next one, just really a general question, and Michelle, I'll go right back to you. Of any advice that you have, you can see it up on the screen here, for women who are just starting in the tech field.
This takes me back to my swimming days. There was one time I was 10 years old and I was actually trying out for the Puerto Rico national team, and I stood at the starting block and I told my parents, said, I'm not jumping in. I'm not doing this. I don't want to do it. And I remember my aunt said, you've been training for the last 3 years. You're jumping in. I don't care about you. Something along the lines of you're jumping in. And that is something that has stuck through me. I jumped in, I cried, both laps there and back, ended up in first place, but that is something that has stuck with me. Just jump in, observe, learn, be a sponge. We don't have all the answers, and I don't think we're supposed to have all the answers as we are encountering new challenges in the tech world. Just go for it, learn, lean on other professionals that have been there. Even when Joey and I were catching up before, last week, I learned so much from her. And I said, that there's just so much to learn from other people that have been there. And for my career, you know, there was a client that came to us with an opportunity for a QA Center of Excellence. I was only 3 years into my tech career, and I said, how am I going to start a multi-shore hybrid team? I'm not sure like where to even start. So I grabbed one of our business partners and I said, I know you've done this many times before. I need you to show me the right way to do this and just stay side by side with me as we, you know, work through this solution for the client. And just by saying yes to that opportunity and just understanding we don't have all the answers. And I think sometimes it looks more daunting than it is. Once you jump in, it's completely, you know, it's, let's figure it out.
Wonderful. And that's advice for just about everything. So thank you for that. Joey, it occurred to me when this question popped up, you might be one of the foremost experts on the world to answer this question. So really curious about your thoughts on this.
Well, I don't know about in the world, because there are definitely there's a lot of expertise about that, but I will share the knowledge I have with you. So I would say I agree with Michelle, learn from people who are in the industry. You know, people often think that women are new to tech. Women are definitely not new to tech. Ada Lovelace was one of the first programmers. If you look through history, women have always been in tech, and there are certainly many talented engineers who are out there who want to help people entering the industry level up and be successful. I would say that the thing that I hear most commonly that really blocks people right in the beginning is a very simple question: where do I start? When you enter tech, there's this whole new world, like people have never heard of your terminal or dev tools. They don't realize you can inspect a website and figure out what it's coded in. There's this like just really basic stuff that if you've never developed a piece of software, you don't even know that this view exists, right? And so there's this whole like nomenclature you have to learn right up front. People don't know where to begin. And the advice I would give is just start. This is really critical because once you learn a programming language, once you understand a framework and a platform and you understand the concepts, you can very easily apply that knowledge and pick up a second or third or fourth language if you want to. So it's not like you're going to close any doors for yourself. You're only going to open them. So pick a language. If you are really excited by mobile apps and you love being on your phone all the time, if you have an Apple and you love Apple, learn Swift. Figure out which language is where you like. If you're like Michelle and me, we love data, Python is probably a great place to start. That's all about data. If you're very visual and you love design, maybe you want to be a front-end web developer. So learning things like HTML and CSS and your basic framework, JavaScript, your basic frameworks for web development is a great place to start. And so kind of just picking a place and going for it is step one, and is probably the biggest blocker that I hear for people who say, oh, I'm thinking about that. And 3 years later, if I meet them, if they've gone into tech, it's because they started. If they didn't, it's because they stalled out right there. With coding, it's like learning any language. If you've ever tried to pick up a second language, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. And if you don't continue practicing it every day, you're never going to build on it. So with coding, finding a project or picking a tutorial, Treehouse has a lot of great ones. If you go to womenwhocode.com/resources, you'll find a bunch of coding resources to get started. Just finding something where you can do a little bit of code every day for a long period of time. At first, you're going to probably not know it and you have to look at lots of cheat sheets, and before you know it, you'll remember things and you'll be able to do things from memory. But honestly, most engineers use references and resources. They're really smart people. They don't hold all the information in their head, they use their resources. And so just starting, practicing, iterating every day is a really big deal. And then go build a network. So we mentioned the women that are in tech. Go build a network. Go to a Women Who Code event. Go to any tech conference that you can, and just check it out. Find a safe space that feels welcoming, and go and see what it's all about. If you're going to be starting in tech and you have no formal training or no experience, I will say that you will probably need to go to a boot camp if you're not going to go the formal education route and get a degree. This isn't something that you'll just magically learn. There are some unicorns out there that are self-taught. Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a longer path. And I really recommend doing a boot camp or a formalized class structure. And then come to Women Who Code to help you get through those study nights and help you get to that next step.
Perfect. Now, there's clearly a lot of interest in this panel right now as we're getting some questions coming in. So we're going to open it up a little bit. And so that said, I've got a question, one based on a topic that both of you spoke to earlier. Both of you spoke about having grace and scaling back, but saying no can be very hard. What advice do you have for setting boundaries and allowing yourself from a workload perspective, scaling back, or even a work-life balance perspective of, you know, keeping that healthy balance? Any advice that you have for our attendees? Joey, I'll go back.
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
I'm going back to you, and then we'll go to Michelle.
Okay, sure, yeah. I would say I would give two pieces of advice for scaling back. One is get clear on what you want to do, and whatever that goal is, whatever your big goal, I'm talking your big picture, your purpose, where are you heading? And then every decision that comes up, every opportunity that comes up, if it's pushing you towards that, say yes. If you can, it's also okay to say not now, but say yes or not now. If it's pushing you away from it, if it's distracting you, if it's creating noise, just say no. You're never going to wake up and regret doing something that took you away from your purpose or your ultimate goal. So that would be my number one. On a day-to-day level, this is my secret that I've really been trying to practice and build myself. Figure out what you're an expert at, and figure out what your colleagues and people around you are an expert at. Sometimes it's even another organization that's an expert at that. And when people ask you to do something, it's really easy to say no if you say, you know, that's not really my area, but here's a resource for you. It's very easy to put someone onto that next resource. And I'll give you an example. At Women Who Code, since I have been with Women Who Code, we frequently get asked to host events for girls. Well, getting girls into tech is supremely important. It is something that is near and dear to my heart. You mentioned I've worked with Girl Scouts for a long time. I definitely want to see more girls in tech. I have a daughter. This is important to me. But is that what Women Who Code is an expert at? No. So for our small team, we say, awesome. We encourage you to go chat with Girls Who Code or Black Girls Who Code or some other organization that's going to have a space for girls. And when you want to, once you're in tech, once you're in your profession, come to us. And so saying no and giving them a resource is a really easy way to do it, and people feel heard. And that's something that in my professional career, for questions that I get asked frequently, I try to figure out what the alternative resource is.
Excellent. Michelle, anything to add to that?
I don't want to be repetitive, but certainly, you know, understanding and having a good vision of where you're trying to get to and looking at everything through that lens, you know, both professionally and personally. There's experiences, opportunities that will come up in both areas of life that you're going to have to say, no, not right now. No, we're not interested. And to Joey's point, redirecting someone, you know, you may not be the best person to answer that question or to solve that issue for someone or to help someone with a solution. So, you know, just redirect them gracefully and authentically, saying, I'm not the best resource for you. Please reach out to this person.
Excellent. And people can tell when you're looking for a way to say no or a way to say yes, and that redirect isn't really a no. It's
Yeah.
part of the path to helping them find the answer. I love this next question. Any advice for women who exited the tech workforce due to COVID and are looking to re-enter? The reason of stepping away because of childcare needs seems to work against women when they're trying to re-enter. So I'll leave that one open to either of you who has any advice there.
So I'll give some advice from working with companies at scale on this challenge for women. So first of all, to the person who's asking this question, I want to say to you, you are golden in this industry. Right now, there are more than 1 million jobs that are going unfilled because people don't have the skills to do the work. If you have been in this industry in the past, it is much easier to upskill you to fill the gap from where you took time off than it is to start someone from scratch. So if someone is telling you otherwise, that's the wrong company for you, hands down. There are many companies out there that recognize this and are even building programs for it. So my next piece of advice is if you're in this position, look for companies that value you, look for companies that have intentional parent programs like the one that Michelle mentioned that she built. Look for companies that are working with organizations like Women Who Code. Look for companies that have a returnship program. That's what a lot of companies are calling them. And these have been built because women in particular step out of the industry more frequently because they often have family responsibilities, whether it's to care for an aging parent or raise a child. And men also do, but more frequently women have this gap in their career. But you are golden if you have been successful in this industry before. Tech changes every day. And so even if you're in the industry every day, you are always behind. It is a learning industry. You are always learning something new. And so also don't underestimate how much knowledge you have standing next to someone that's been in the industry. They might know the most current thing. They might not. They might have been stuck working in COBOL for the last 10 years. And now their companies realize they're moving away from those systems. And now they have no idea how to code in the latest language. So just because you've been away, it doesn't mean that you don't have the skills. And if that company doesn't value you, you're just at the wrong company. So keep looking. And if you're looking right now, I would check out Women Who Code has a job board at womenwhocode.com/jobs. Those are all companies who value diversity. And I would check them out and keep looking until you find the right company because they're out there. And Michelle, I know because you built this parent group that you must have a lot of insight into this. And so I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Thanks, Joey. I mean, you said something that is so important to me and is go where you are valued. And I think, sometimes we sell ourselves a bit short, and we need to realize that tech is now becoming such a customer and people-focused business. Yes, there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of technology that enables all that to happen. But at the end of the day, so many companies are trying to go towards a customer-focused technology. And that is a space I think that women from many diverse backgrounds, as well as men, but because the question came specifically from a female, we bring a lot of value in that space. And I think we need to hold our value up. And there's a lot of companies out there that, are hiring remote workers. I mean, at Kforce, we're seeing it more than ever. It's incredible the opportunities that are opening, nationwide. Before, you were so constricted to your geographical area, and it is incredible the amount of remote jobs we have. We're also partnered with Women Who Code. They help us as well find resources. So it's opening up. Those barriers that were once limitations are no longer there. And I think women have a very, very special place right now. And if you're coming back to tech or if you're in tech, to bring that human factor back to some of those customer interactions within IT.
Michelle, you just mentioned something very important. You mentioned barriers and how those barriers are breaking down. That being said, as a female leader, what would you consider to have been one of the more significant barriers throughout your career?
This is a question that I still probably get choked up when I have to address it. It certainly has been all the negative criticism of being willing to have kids and be a wonderful mom and also grow in my career. There was a lot of criticism. I found a job that I fell in love with early on in my 20s, that being what I do at Kforce. And many said, it's not sustainable. You won't be able to do this forever. What's your long-term plan? I said, my long-term plan is to be a mom and a career woman. That's what I'm going to do. So, there was a lot of headwinds in that space. And I think even to this day, I am more apologetic than I should be because of some of that criticism. And it's something I work with daily and I deal with daily. But I mean, it is hard to break that status quo. I remember people would show up to my house, to help with my kids, and they go, "You can't keep working this way." I go, "Who said so? Who are you to tell me that?" So, I that certainly was one that has stuck with me. And, to those people that said that, here I am. So anyway.
Awesome. Yes, epitomizing success in both areas. Amazing. Joey?
Yeah, Michelle, I think you hit it on the head when you used the phrase headwinds. It's it's interesting because people talk about this a lot, and sure, there might be moments in your career, but it's that every day you're sort of going upstream or working against these headwinds. I think that is such a beautiful way to explain it, in a way that I haven't heard before. I think the kind of things that stand out that like have stuck with me are, I get a lot, my wife actually hears a lot of comments. I've heard it from even family members who are very proud of the work I do and think it's meaningful, and they know how much it means to me. But in the world, I've heard this phrase over and over again. They say, "I don't know how you put up with her traveling all the time," because I travel for work. Now, I will watch someone who is married, a woman who's married to a man, and what they say about their husband if they travel for work is, "Wow, aren't you're so proud of him? He's doing all these great things. He's traveling the world, and he's doing all of this work." But what I hear said to my wife is, "I don't know how you put up with that. Your woman should be at home, right?" And so is the implication, and that has always been tough for me, because I'm like, and I always have to check in of like, are we good? I'm like, no, we built our relationship the way we wanted it to. We're she's very proud of me and supports me in everything I do. And in return, I'm supporting our family, right? So that one's been tough. And when people have a hard time, and I keep saying people because it doesn't just come from men, it comes from other women too. And from people who are gender non-binary, you hear it in all different spaces. When women are in the lead, people have a hard time with that for some reason. Something that I have heard different times are, wow, you're getting so emotional about this, or they'll try to assign an emotion. Oh, you're frustrated. And especially sitting in the C-suite, sometimes you just have to say, no, I'm just being clear. This is my expectation. Like, I have no emotion about this. This is fact. And when you encounter those things, I think calling people on it and saying, well, that's a really gendered way to describe the direction that I'm giving. Like, it's letting people know. And sometimes they'll sit back and they'll go, yeah, you're right. Because maybe I do have an emotion, but actually most cases when I've heard the phrase emotional, it's about being clear and direct and having an expectation. And people have a hard time when women are clear, direct, and have an expectation, if they haven't encountered that in a lot of spaces. So those are some of the gendered things that I think you find. But for me, I see it as an opportunity to educate, and it's an opportunity to bring a different style of leadership. And so, but it's those little things that come up that surprise you because you're not ready for them. You're kind of going about your life, and then all of a sudden one of these things will land on you, and you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. And you can always spot it. Michelle, I'm sure you will agree with this, or I don't want to speak for you, but you might agree with this, that when something like that happens, I almost immediately have this gut reaction of, oh, if I were a man, they wouldn't have said that, or they wouldn't have said it that way. You almost always know. It's not surprising. And for the women who are in the leadership, they will also know like what we're talking about.
Well,
Agreed.
we're coming. What was that, Michelle?
I said agreed. It's out there.
It certainly is. That being said, I really want to thank everybody who joined our call today, but a special thank you to Joey and Michelle for the energy and wisdom, energy invested in the wisdom shared. This has been incredibly inspiring. I also want to remind everybody that we've recorded this, so we will be sending that out to all the different registrants with our feedback survey. That's what allows us to choose our next topic and also as we look at different types of platforms to maximize the messages that we have within this. But once again, your responses and your questions that you've asked today are greatly appreciated. So Michelle, Joey, thank you one more time, and we really appreciate everything that you've done for us today.
Thank you, Andy, for organizing this and your team.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me. Michelle, it's been really a pleasure getting to meet you through this process. I hope we can stay connected. This has been really fun, and I value
Yes.
all of the wisdom you've brought forward. So thank you.
Yes, a lot to share, a lot to learn. So thank you as well, Joey.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.